Hi, my name is Jonathan Price. I am a freelance digital illustrator guy, and I was asked by a friend to show how to do lettering in a comic. Now, I am by no means an expert in lettering or anything else art related, really. I just do my best. But I know a little bit about how to do things in an efficient way, and this is one way that you can do things. Not the only way, probably not the best way. A lot of people use Illustrator to do lettering. I don't particularly like Illustrator, so I don't use it much. So, yeah. Basically, lettering is when you put words in a comic book for narration or dialogue. And I just made this page the other day for my Jet Dancer comic book. Don't know when I'm going to be finished. But for the time being, I'm on this page, and we have a scene where this character is sitting, doing something on the computer, and he's bored, thinking, he wishes he can go to bed or whatever. And suddenly the building shakes in this panel here, and he's not really sure what the heck's going on. He looks out the window, and he sees a silhouette of debris falling from the roof, and somebody leaping around the sky. And that is, of course, the titular Jet Dancer character. I originally hadn't had planned to dialogue this page much, but for the sake of this, I guess you can call it a tutorial or walkthrough, I'm going to just show how I do lettering. Alright, first things first, assuming that, you're done with everything else, color-wise and everything, even if you're not. As you can tell, I'm pretty new at this whole talking on the internet thing. Anyway, first thing you want to do, if you're writing a comic book, chances are you probably have a script, and you can just copy and paste your script lines into your image, your page file. I didn't write the script. Like I said, I hadn't planned on putting dialogue on this page, but this will make a fine example. It doesn't have to be exactly what it's going to be. Anyway, without further ado, Photoshop, text tool, where you can put text on the image. There are many applications for this, but for right now, I'm just going to keep it simple. What I like to do is I'd like to decide where the words are going to be. So let's just say I put something here. Of course, you can always change this later. Since we're talking about dialogue, I'm going to make it black, and the font choice is very important. You don't want to have something that's too distracting. I have a lot of fonts, but for comic book dialogue, I prefer to use Digital Strip, which I got off of blambot.com. There are many others, of course, on that site. What was that other one I just saw? Kid Cosmic. That looks kind of cool. Let's try this one just this once. Alright. I'm just going to type some text here. Doesn't really matter what he's saying. I'm just going to think of something. No, I can't really see what I'm typing, but now, as you can see, the text appears on its own layer, named basically what you wrote. And I mistyped it. If you make a mistake, hit the type tool, drag over the area, and it'll automatically select that layer no matter what layer you're on. You can just automatically go there and fix it. Even if I'm down here where I have some highlight from something there, if I hit the type tool and I drag in here, it'll go right back to that layer. So that's good. That's useful. Now, comic book dialogue traditionally has the lettering kind of looking centered like that, because you're going to put it in a round balloon. So, and another thing you want to consider is font size. This will depend on the size of your image. Basically, you want it to be big enough to read, but not so big that it takes up too much space on the page, especially if you got a lot of dialogue, and that can happen. You can also resize the window. get the shape of the letters, they should automatically match up to what you want. And I tried to go for a roundish type layout. Anyway, now that we got the letters here, here's where it gets simple and interesting. I do this a lot, so I record an action for it. Step 1, make the shape of your word balloon. I like to use the shape tools, like the pen tool, but you can also make a square, a rounded square, a circle, hexagon, line tool, and you can use all sorts of custom shapes. And of course you could make it easy and just make a custom shape that is a dialogue balloon. I've got a few of those, like this. Problem with that is it's hard to adjust to exactly what you want. So I like to make them manually. Take my shape tool, make a circle, and put it like that, so it's nice and round, gives an ample amount of space around the letters. Oops, try to drag it. Okay, I don't know what's going on here. Let me fix my window. Okay, now that we got that, I'm gonna make it just a bit smaller. Okay, that's one. Then I turn that into a selection by hitting Control Enter. But before I go, take my pen tool, my absolute favorite Photoshop tool, and I might just do something like this. Make the point, the tail, if you will, of the balloon. Oh, I'm sorry. I did that by first making the tail, and then you hold Shift, Control, Enter, and what that does, it will add your pen path to your current selection. Love that. Then you can simply fill this selection with black. Black, you say? Yeah, I said black. Keep the selection active, then hit Select, Modify, Contract by a number of pixels, maybe 3, and then fill your selection with white. Done. You have yourself a lettered word balloon. Of course, there are many other things you can do with this. Say if you want to make them sound angry. Layer effects. Stroke. Maybe we're going to make that red. I'm going to go for a reddish type thing. And we're going to make it big. Like, he's angry. Man, don't change serious saying. But I'm not big on that. But you can play around with different things you know about Photoshop to enhance your balloons. That's really all there is to it. Like I said, I did this with a recorded action. That may have looked slow. It would be annoying to do that with a whole bunch of text, to do that selection and that action and those commands over and over and over. So I set it up as one little action. Actions, as you may or may not know, are a series of commands you can program in Photoshop to do a bunch of things with one click or one button command. And I use a bunch of these a lot to speed up the workflow. So let's say if I added more dialogue, another type tool, I'll just say, by the way, you do not have to drag a shape. I like to give myself some boundaries. You don't have to, but if you don't, then the lines will keep going straight out as if you're typing on a Word document. I don't know if you can hear him, but that's my son in the background whining and screaming and talking about SpongeBob. Can't stand that show. Anyway, so if I say something like, by the way, this is not the planned dialogue for this comic page, not at all. I'm just using this as a test. First of all, these aren't even full black, but I don't care. Not for the test, not for this example. Okay. Anyway, say for sake of argument I want to connect two balloons together. Well, this is what I would do. I would make my shape. I would start with this, same as before. Get it the way I want it. You can manipulate paths the same way you can manipulate anything else. Very convenient. Then I'll make another one. And perhaps, by the way, I'm using the direct selection tool to move my paths That's A on the keyboard. It's this thing right here. Okay. Oops. Remember, Shift Control Enter to add to the selection. Then I take my pen tool, and there are a number of ways I can do this. In fact, watch this. Instead of doing that, I will just take this whole path, move it in, and then add it. And you can always move the text, but I'll do that later. Finally, bore balloon tail, Shift Control Enter. Now I have that shape. Now, like I said, I use actions for this. So I program my action to do all that, fill, expand, fill again as one move. Where is it? Dialog bubble fill. I programmed it to be the F8 key. So I just hit F8 and it does that instantly. Then I can move the text to suit the balloon. And as long as these things stay as text layers, you can change them. You can make them bigger, smaller. You can change them into different fonts. Like I said, I prefer to use Digital Strip, but I wanted to see how that Kid Cosmic looked. Looked like it's a nice secondary choice. Thing is, it's good to be sure what you want to do, because you don't want to go having to remake the balloons, which is why I guess a lot of people like to use Illustrator, because the vector controls make it simpler to do all that. And that is basically how I letter. It's pretty cut and dry. Type the text, put a balloon under it, make the shape, stroke it, or fill the shape with black and then shrink the selection, fill it with white, move the text to fit, you're done. Real quick and easy. Any questions? Hit me up, dualmask@gmail.com or dualmask@deviantart.com. Thank you and have a nice day.